Science has actually shown us that what you eat is actually very, very important because there is a well-established connection between the brain and the gut. And brain-gut axis, which is bidirectional, is vital for maintaining health and then treating disease.
Today's guest is no ordinary surgeon. He's a global game changer in brain surgery. Dr. Charlie Teo has pushed boundaries, defied odds, and taken on cases others called inoperable. From operating under pressure to standing up for what he believes in, his story is truly inspirational.
It's better to give than to receive. And it's a great message because at the end of the day, my job in life was to give. The reason I love medicine so much is because I'm helping others. And when that was taken away from me, I could have wallowed in self-pity. I could have adopted something else. I could have tried to make money. I could have done all these other things, but it was in my genes. I had to do it.
If you've ever faced a tough call or insurmountable odds, this episode will hit you right between the eyes and also touch your heart. A great pleasure to introduce Dr. Charlie Teo. How are you, mate?
I'm very good, Adrian.
So we have been fortunate enough to meet over the last 12, 18 months through a dear friend of ours, Scott Irwin, and attended your ball and charity there, the Rebel Without a Cause charity, which has been fantastic. And we've got to know each other, and we have a lot of conversations around mental health, young men, brain, neuroscience. We also have another friend in common, Dr. Evan Skamotta as well, who we talk about a lot on this podcast. So before we jump into all of that today, I'd love to find out about the young Charlie and what kind of influenced you to where you are today, and what were your impact upon your childhood that got you to where you are?
Well, I guess I was shaped by a combination of a silver spoon and adversity. The silver spoon because my father was a doctor, so we weren't poor. We had opportunities. But adversity because he wasn't the best father. He was physically abusive, left our family. So I was raised essentially by a single mum. The school I went to, for example, only had a couple of Chinese guys. So there was a lot of anti-Semitism, anti-Asian sentiment. I'm not complaining, but that's what molded me into the person I am, both adversity as well as opportunity.
It's things that don't kill us make us stronger. It absolutely builds resilience in a human being. So just a quick one on this, and I think you'd agree, as much as there is post-traumatic stress, there's also post-traumatic growth as well. So
I like that. I haven't heard that before, Adrian.
There you go. Thank you very much, mate. Yeah, look, because I guess that's part of what we can uncover today. Why do people react a different way when it comes to stimulus from the outside? So it becomes quite interesting how some thrive through it and become tougher and stronger, and others don't do so well.
No, you're absolutely right. There's a lot to be said for adversity because it does sort of give you a hard skin. It teaches you how to tolerate the hard knocks, gives you opportunities that you would never have had before. Believe it or not, even though you feel like taking away opportunities, actually giving them to you. And no, you're right. Wouldn't it be great if there was a magic bullet or some sort of medication we could give someone so that adversity made them stronger rather than made them weaker?
It's very interesting. I believe a lot in life happening for you, not to you. And I think that comes back with self-reflection, and also to, once you have that self-reflection, it's about choosing that it's a positive, not a negative, or finding a way to turn it into. It's not easy. Look, I've had what I would say an eventful childhood, so we can relate on that. And some people would call it traumatic. And I knew I was going to get inspired and emotional today because we've had some great chats in the past. But I truly don't regret a single thing that happened to me because it made me the man I am. And it also too made me feel like I have to serve others as well. And I'm getting a feeling from our past conversations as well as today that's kind of where it's put you as well. So tell me more about, you got through school, you decided to become a doctor yourself. Tell us about that period.
Well, I actually didn't want to do medicine. It's not that as if I had a tiger mum, but certainly Chinese parents want their children to be doctors or lawyers. I had a black belt in karate. I loved using my hands. I started an apprenticeship as a mechanic. So really, if I'd asked me at 16, 17 where I would be in 10 years' time, it was, I really wanted to own my own security company, use my black belt and use my skills there. I wanted to use my hands, so I wanted to be a mechanic. There was a lot of things I wanted to do, and medicine certainly wasn't one of them. I guess I wasn't against medicine. My father was a doctor, and I like people and I like helping people. So when I didn't get the respect that I thought I should have got as a apprentice mechanic, I quickly changed vocations, and I got the marks to get into medicine. So I decided I'd take up the University of New South Wales offer and do medicine. And I haven't looked back since. It was a great university degree. It's a great vocation. It fits me perfectly, and really pleased that I didn't do anything else, because it's really been something that has made me grow as a person and allowed me to help others.
Yeah, it's amazing. When you have a life of service, I serve in a totally different way. I can't even compare it to your life. However, it is still, in essence, a life of service. You've got to help people. When you give up your own, I guess, you put others before yourself, that it makes so much more enjoyable. It is a reason why they say givers gain, and better to give than to receive.
There are scientific studies on it, Adrian, out of, I think, the University of Chicago. There's a Department of Happiness.
Yeah,
And so
right.
there's a very good experiment where they gave people money, and they said you can spend the money on anything you like. Spending money on yourself and buying something for yourself gave immediate, instantaneous happiness, but it drifted off and faded away pretty quickly. But giving money to someone else or buying something for someone else gave you sort of long-lasting happiness. So it's not just a feeling inside us. It's actually been proven that it is better to give than to receive.
That's fascinating. It reminds me of a conversation. And again, I have so many conversations, I can't remember who told me this. But someone said if you're starting to feel a bit flat, again, we're not talking about clinical depression, we're just talking about a bit flat, go and help somebody do something. Get out of your own way, go and donate it as a support at a charity, go and help somebody do something outside of your little bubble. And then straight away, you get back into a perspective of, my life's not so bad.
Yeah, yeah.
So something you said earlier, Charlie, was about the mechanic. I know we're digressing a little bit here too, but we both have a love for motorbikes. I think you're riding a 750. Or was it the 750 you were riding the other night? We caught up.
That's my little get-arounder. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
700. Yeah.
And you've also got a 1,000cc Yamaha from memory. Is
No,
that correct?
Aprilia.
Aprilia, sorry, how could I forget? We talked about, my apologies. Tell us about your love for motorbikes. Is that where the mechanic part came along earlier on?
I've loved motorbikes since I was a young fella. I got my first motorbike when I was 16. It was a Yamaha DT 175. My love for motorbikes and mechanics grew from that early age. I've then had a whole string of motorbikes since then. I tried to get rid of the motorbike bug, knowing that, it might kill me one day. So I thought, I better get into cars. So when I was in America, of course, you can afford nice cars. And I had a Porsche 911, and I just never got rid of the motorbike bug. I came back to Australia, where you can't afford fancy cars, and I bought another motorbike, and I've always had motorbikes since. I just cannot get rid of the bug. I'm almost in my...
I get it, mate.
Yeah, I'm almost 70 now, and I know my reflexes aren't as good as they used to be, but I still love, scraping the pegs around a corner and, doing, ridiculous speeds on windy roads. I just love it. Can't get rid of it.
It's freedom. We both don't have hair in the wind anymore, but I totally get that. It is absolute freedom. I've got a dirt bike at the moment, looking at a new road bike, but I went riding with a friend of mine. He's 54, I'm 50. No, sorry, he's 52. I aged the poor bugger. We were riding like we were 18. Well, we thought that. Probably everyone around us thought we were riding slow, but we thought we were going fast, and we didn't care. We were on a dirt track having a ball, and it was just like a special moment. So, I totally get how they make you feel, and I wouldn't stop riding if I was you, mate, as long as you can. Keep doing it.
Yeah, no, I used to take the bike out to Eastern Creek on ride days and compete with the young fellas and actually keep up with them, if not beat them. Wayne Gardner's a buddy of mine, and Wayne taught me how to ride properly, and he took me out to Eastern Creek and gave me a few hints and stuff. But now when I ride amongst the young guys, I think I'm going fast, like you said, and I'm just not keeping up with them at all. So it's very embarrassing. So if I ever go to Eastern Creek now, I just make sure it's me and me alone, not with all the young fellas.
That's who it's for at the end of the day. You don't have to go compete anymore as long as you're having fun.
You do, Adrian. No, when you're a competitive sort of person, it's all about competing. I'm sorry.
I totally get that. So tell us, look, obviously you've had a very, very accomplished life. You're living partly in China at the moment, partly in Australia, partly all around the world. Where are you based at the moment?
Yeah, no, I'm very much I have a global address at the moment. I'm sure we'll touch on what happened 5 years ago, but whatever happened 5 years ago has been almost like a godsend. It's been a blessing because, I was very frustrated in Australia that I couldn't teach, and the only fellows that were coming to learn from me were fellows from overseas. Mm-hmm. I wasn't able to teach Australian neurosurgeons or Australian residents or registrars. But now that I'm more of a global neurosurgeon, I'm teaching so many people now in China, but also in Europe, South America, Southeast Asia. Next week I go to Ethiopia. Yeah, I'm really, really enjoying the sort of passion that I've always had of teaching. I know, no, don't get me wrong. My major passion has always been operating, but underneath that, and as a close second, was teaching.
And I
And
think
now I'm
as we get
going
older
forward.
too, we like to pass on what we've learned. It is definitely a transfer of the guard, I think, too.
Yeah, for sure.
I tell you, I don't know if I shared this with you. A family friend that is a surgeon or practicing to be a surgeon, and this is when I first met you about 18 months ago. I mentioned your name, and they almost like recalled, "Oh my God, you can't talk to him." So let's talk about 5 years ago, because I just thought it was such an odd reaction. Do you know him? Have you met him? It was just a very, very visceral reaction, is kind of what it was. Tell us, for the audience that doesn't know the story, what happened 5 years ago, and where's that all at now?
Well, that's a great start because basically it is the essence of my problem. The essence of my problem is that people judge me who don't know me. And people like your friend who've never met me, they're the ones who hate me the most. He's not the exception to the rule. Sadly, he's the rule.
Yep.
So by far the majority of doctors in Australia, especially neurosurgeons, especially other surgeons, especially members of the college, especially governing bodies, especially leaders of the medical fraternity, absolutely hate me.
Yep.
Hate me, with vehemence and passion. And they've never met me. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So they've judged me on what they believe is the Charlie Teo that has achieved celebrity status. And the celebrity status was something that I never yearned for or never tried to achieve. It just came my way because I was never a wilting flower. I never said that I wouldn't do an interview. I'm happy to do interviews. I'm happy to speak to anyone. I'm happy to beat my own drum if it's going to save lives. So what I did was I basically did what I thought all doctors should do, and that is give people a chance if they want a chance.
Yep.
Not coerce them, but if they want a chance at life, give them a chance at life, even if the odds are stacked against them. And that gave me a profile that I never, ever thought I would get. And that is, this profile of almost a godlike figure who can save lives that no one else can save. Believe me, I don't have any more talents than anyone else. Half the neurosurgeons who rejected those patients in the first place could probably take the tumour out, but you do need courage. And I think what happened 5 years ago shows how much courage you need, because by standing outside the box and doing what consensus says you shouldn't do and going against evidence-based medicine turns out to be a professionally lethal combination. And that's what it was. So essentially, everything that I had done for the last 30 years, i.e. save people who had been told that they weren't salvageable and taking out tumours that had been hitherto described as inoperable, put me out on a limb where I had alienated my colleagues. Now, they assumed it was intentional, which is ridiculous because it was totally unintentional. I didn't take out these tumours to make them look bad.
Yep.
I took out the tumours to help the patient.
Yep.
But the sad thing about it is that whether it was intentional or unintentional, it still had the same effect.
Yeah.
And the effect was that, it made them look bad because they had said it's inoperable. They had sort of dismissed the patient. And then I come along, take the tumour out. The patient is alive or sometimes even cured. And so it makes them look bad. So when you're made to look bad by someone, there are two options available to you. You can go, Jesus, maybe I better upskill and learn what he's doing and treat my patients the same way as he treats them. Or you can destroy the person. And it's a whole lot easier to destroy someone than it is to upskill. Upskill requires time away from your family to learn those techniques, money because you can't earn money while you're doing a fellowship overseas and you've still got overheads. Getting out of your comfort zone because you're going to be doing something that you were not taught and is something that's very risky to you and your reputation. Or destroy someone, which is so easy to do, it turns out. And all you've got to do is strategize well and you can destroy anyone.
Yeah.
And, it's not just medicine. It's not just me.
Yep.
There are so many examples of people being destroyed by their colleagues, by jealousy, by the tall poppy syndrome that really don't deserve to be treated that way.
And there's one of you and hundreds of them. So that also, too, they've got the numbers in their favour and the establishment as well.
Well, it's the classical case of bullying. And it's so prevalent in medicine that, in fact, if you do a Wikipedia search or a Google search on bullying, the first subset that comes up is medical bullying.
Right.
It is that common. It's endemic in our vocation. It's a hierarchical system that encourages dick sucking. I mean, I'm sorry, there's no way of saying it. You've got to suck dick. And if you don't suck dick, then you're in big trouble.
Yeah,
And not only do you have to suck dick, but you've got to pretend that you're enjoying it as well. So a lot of people like me who don't like sucking dick can't, I can't play the game.
yeah, yeah,
And if you can't play the game, you're going to be
yeah,
ostracized and penalized and vilified and persecuted for not playing the game.
yeah.
It's a terrible system.
Yeah, I empathise with you. A lot of doctors tried to speak out around the COVID measures and stuff like that, and they were absolutely struck off and vilified, and the same thing happened again.
Did you see what happened to those poor doctors who all they were doing is telling the truth? They were doing what they thought they should do as doctors, i.e. protect their patients and protect the community.
Do no
They
harm.
read the articles. They were well informed. It didn't feel right. And the expression in medicine is, if it doesn't feel right, it ain't right. And so they verbalized it and they were struck off. They were demonized. They had their income and their reputation destroyed for sometimes years before they got reinstated again, just because they said something contrary to our governing bodies and our parliament. And I think the one great thing that came out of COVID is that the public suddenly became aware that, oh my God, maybe politicians and doctors don't do things in our best interest.
Yeah, they're fallible.
Maybe they've
They
got
make
hidden
mistakes.
agendas.
Yes.
And, COVID was a perfect example of hidden agendas and how we can't trust the people we vote in as our politicians, and we can't trust doctors.
Well, don't get me started on politics because I'll go off on my tangent. But just quickly, politics has just become so blurred. It's there to run a country, and then they creep into how to raise your kids and how to do this and how to do that, and it just becomes persuasive through every aspect of life. So I won't go down that rabbit hole today. So tell us, so that's happened now. Where are you at? Like, you're now obviously still able to operate overseas. What's going on with that at the moment?
Yeah, well, actually, I'm able to operate in Australia.
Yep.
So the Professional Standards Committee found me guilty of unprofessional behaviour.
Mm-hmm.
And the two cases that they brought up demonstrated lack of professional behaviour on two counts. The first count was giving contrary second opinions, which is, I mean, I know that sounds ridiculous, but that's what it was. They said that because a medical multidisciplinary clinic had called a tumour inoperable, then I should have called the tumour inoperable as well. So you can't give contrary second opinions, firstly. And the second one was a case where everyone agreed it was difficult. Everyone agreed that it was worth giving it a go. But they said that I was overly optimistic in my consent process, which is absolute rubbish as well. I had a witness during the consent who came out and said he told the patient the risk was this, this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
He absolutely told them the risk. And then the lawyers got up and said, well, we can't trust that witness because you like him, don't you? And he likes you, and he's your friend. And he is. He's my friend. He was my fellow. He trained with me for 6 months. He's a good colleague and a good person. And so by saying that he was my friend and my colleague, the committee was told to disregard his statement that I consented the patient correctly.
Wow.
The whole thing was terrible, Adrian. The whole thing was just a witch hunt. It had no rationality to it or reasoning to it. It was just a total witch hunt to get rid of me.
I want to maintain the status quo. We don't like any rogues, in their words, not obviously not the reality, not towing the line. It's horrendous. Yeah,
Not towing the party line, exactly.
And now, so what's, I know you working on mental health and depression is a very, very big focus for you and your daughter's place in Rosebery, again, next door to a dear friend of mine, Singulum. How do I pronounce that properly?
Singulum, yep.
Singulum, yep. Tell us all about that and how that's been helping people.
Well, this should really, hopefully, resonate with your listeners because, the one message I'd like to get out, having gone through such adversity and bullied by such powerful governing bodies, is that everything happens for a reason. And exactly like you said, that which doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And, that's what's happened. It's almost like I'm almost at the stage, not quite there yet, but almost at the stage where I'm thanking my enemies and thanking the media for vilification of me. Because if it wasn't for them, I'd still be a busy neurosurgeon operating on 10 brain tumours a week and having time for nothing else.
Yep.
So what they did was they stopped me from operating in Australia, which gave me time to reflect.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, I had a professional partner with me at the time who's an absolute genius. And we both sat down and said, well, look, if we can't operate, what can we do? Well, it turned out that a few years beforehand, an article was published in Nature called the Human Connectome Project. And the Human Connectome Project was basically this revolutionary article which completely destroyed our old understanding of the brain and introduced a completely new understanding of the human brain. But it was very esoteric, difficult to read, difficult to understand, and certainly I was not able to take that information and translate it to patient care. So I said to my partner, Mike Chagru, I said, Mike, do you think you can take the Human Connectome Project and turn it into something that's clinically applicable? And he goes, yeah, for sure. And he did it. So what he, and because he's a genius, and a whole lot of other people did, and these were all geniuses in their own right. They were data scientists. They all got together. And now what their company can do is it can take an MRI scan, trawl through all the data is produced by an MRI scan, use artificial intelligence and machine learning, and create a map of your brain that not just shows you how the brain looks, in other words, structural map, but how it functions.
Right.
And that's a complete game changer because it not only shows you task-based functions, but all functions of the brain. So I'm talking all functions like imagination and empathy.
Right. So what parts of the brain will light up when you're thinking of something or imagining?
Exactly.
Right.
We never knew where those parts of the brain sat.
Yep.
We never knew what controlled happiness or sadness. And the Human Connectome Project has now completely opened our eyes to a new brain that now can be shown by this app produced by Mike Chagru. Okay, so with that information, that technology, I thought, I might be able to help my neurosurgery patients who I've damaged. And so if I've ever damaged someone and caused some deficit, like a weak arm or a weak leg or poor speech, I could possibly use a technology called transcranial magnetic stimulation, which has been around for decades, and help my patients who I've hurt.
Right.
Well, I treated one of my patients with a paralyzed hand, and they came back and said, Charlie, the hand's a little bit better, thank you. But the thing that I find most amazing about your TMS treatment is that now no longer have depression. Got rid of my depression.
Fantastic.
So then I quickly did my research and started going to meetings, psychiatry meetings, and realized that these maps can personalize treatment for all patients with any brain disorder. So I'm talking any brain disorder. I'm talking stroke, Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, head injuries, TBI, CTE, depression, anxiety, tinnitus, any brain disorder. We can now map those people's brains, show where the abnormalities of function or activity, and then we can modify those areas using a very, very non-invasive technology called TMS.
Right.
And that's what the Singulum Clinic is doing. So Singulum is now basically seeing all patients with any brain disorder and helping them with a personalized, bespoke approach that uses the latest technology, TMS, and other interventions to improve brain health and brain disease.
Lovely. So again, coming from my layman's terms, is it like creating new neural pathways to get stuff that no longer works to find another way to connect to what needs to be connected in order to complete the circuit? Is that?
Yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, very simplified.
Scientists actually don't know exactly how TMS works.
Right.
But the bottom line is it appears to accelerate plasticity. So what is plasticity? Plasticity is the natural body's mechanism to reroute networks in the brain when networks are broken. So if you've got a broken network, like a stroke, patients who have strokes get better. Well, they don't get better because a broken network gets better. They get better because they recircuit.
Got it. They find another way around.
Yeah, they find another way around the broken area. And we all have the ability to utilize plasticity of our brain, but as we get older, it becomes less and less and takes longer and longer. So they did these experiments where they put prisms on your glasses that inverted the image, so that instead of seeing a person standing up, you'd see them head down, feet up. And if you put them on a baby, the baby's brain was so plastic that within a day, the baby's brain could revert the image to normal.
Right.
Then they tried a 10-year-old child, a 40-year-old man, and a 65-year-old man, and they all did it. But the older you are, the longer it took for your brain to evert the image. And so we all have plasticity, but sometimes it just takes too long.
Yep.
So when you have a stroke, for example, we know that given the right amount of time, you will improve. But sometimes you get strokes when you're in your 60s and your 70s, and you're going to be dead before you get improvement in your neurological deficit.
Yeah.
So TMS comes along and accelerates that whole
Got it.
process.
So let's talk about how we can look after our brain as we get older, or even when we're younger. Because when we're younger, we don't even think we're ever going to get old, and all of a sudden that happened, or older. And then, is there obviously alcohols we know is not great for brain cells. Minimize that, if not cut it out completely. I know that could be a little bit of a stretch for some people listening today. But what other kind of? I know we're talking to the right audience.
You're giving them license to drink. You shouldn't
Hey,
do that.
It's not that hard. It's not that hard. It's just a choice at the end of the day. So what other stuff can we do to two things? Not just slow down the aging of our brain, but also to enhance our brain function. Because my listeners are business owners or they're sales technicians who are, everything that they do is very thought thinking orientated. So the better you think, the better the problem solving capacity can be. What stuff can we do to slow it down, but also to speed up our cognitive abilities?
Yeah, so you can break it down into several categories. And this is not just me. This is absolutely proven by science.
Sure.
So prevention, and then let's divide into prevention and treatment. Mm-hmm. So if you've got a great brain, but you want to try and keep it great, there's a million things you can do. And most of those things have been proven to be scientifically based. Okay, first is exercise. And so there's a thing called protein, or an enzyme in the brain that improves or enhances nerve growth. And that can be increased in concentration by exercise. And again, proven.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, cardiovascular or weight training, or what type of exercise? Does it matter?
No, it's cardiovascular exercise that is increasing your pulse rate over a 20-minute period 3 times a week. So you can't do too much exercise. You can do too little. Yep. So the ideal, they say, is about 3 times a week, i.e. every 2 or 3 days. 20 minutes of warming up, 20 minutes of getting your pulse rate to about 70 to 80% of its maximum, and then 20 minutes of cooling down. And if you do that 3 times a week, again, the science tells us that it's good for your brain.
Got it. And so the weight training, not so much, but for the brain health, cardiovascular is definitely the type of exercise we would like to be doing.
Yeah. The next thing is your diet. And again, everything is shown now that your diet is incredibly important in maintaining health. We used to think that, our mums would say what you eat is what you are, but scientists and doctors never really thought that. When I went through medicine, for example, nutrition wasn't even on the syllabus.
Yep. I've even heard that recently a few years ago. I got a few.
Oh my God! Even doctors today, they get 1 day of nutrition or something.
It's interesting to sit on that for a second. I was gonna actually go digress, but you brought us there anyway. I can't remember who I was visiting in hospital not long ago. The food that you get when you're in hospital, it's not even food. It's processed. It's rubbish. Isn't it funny that there's such a disconnect there? But it's fascinating.
Isn't it sad? Because again, it's not woohoo. Science has actually shown us that what you eat is actually very, very important. In fact, we now know that there is a subspecialty developing in medicine called neurogastroenterology, because there is a well-established connection between the brain and the gut.
Right.
And so, this brain-gut axis, which is bidirectional, is vital for maintaining health and then treating disease.
Yeah, right.
So your brain health can affect your gut health can affect your brain health, and your gut health is determined so much by what you eat. All those colorful vegetables, for example, why are they good for you? Well, they contain a thing called butyrate, and butyrate is essential in terms of keeping your microbiome stable and keeping you happy.
That's right.
And if you have abnormal butyrate concentrations, then that's associated with depression. So prebiotics, probiotics, all those things are incredibly important in maintaining gut health. Yeah. Polyphenols, phenols, plant-based diet, all those things are incredibly important in maintaining gut health, which will maintain brain health. And then there's sleep. Well, oh my God, this is sad for me to say because I don't sleep well. I sleep probably 3 or 4 hours a night, but I shouldn't, because all the studies show that many diseases, the substrate for many diseases is poor sleep. And if you can sleep well, you can maintain your health for a long, long time. And sleeping well is not 3 or 4 hours a night. It's not 6 hours a night. It's somewhere between 6 and 8 hours a night. Too much sleep is bad for you as well. So more than 9 hours sleep is not good, but 6 to 8 hours sleep, and it can vary according to your age, but in general, 6 to 8 hours sleep is vital for maintaining health.
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat. I mean, I sleep good amount of hours, but I'm mouth breathing at the moment, and I'm not carrying heaps of weight. But I do notice, and I've made some correction. I dropped about 6 kilos to help that, and it has improved. But I do notice that I don't know what's going on, if we're just getting weaker in our jaws and our tongues are blocking our airways. But I find it's almost like an epidemic at the moment, mouth breathing while people sleep.
Yeah. That's because there's an epidemic of obesity. That's why, Adrian. Yeah.
So what we think is the right weight is nowhere near the right weight. Probably have to lose another 10 kilo. Yeah.
And then finally, the last thing, of course, is to avoid toxins, neurotoxins. And again, most of the public, most doctors, including myself, for decades were ignorant of, where are these neurotoxins coming from? And it turns out that those neurotoxins are coming from a lot of things that we we ingest on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So, you've got to try and avoid toxins. Alcohol's just one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Then, of course, you've got heavy metals. And, where do we get our heavy metals from? From seafood and dairy products.
Yep.
What about microplastics? Well, where do we get our microplastics from? We get them from bottled water, seafood as well. And so we're so poorly educated in maintaining health and avoiding toxins that it's no wonder that we're becoming unhealthier and unhealthier. And, a lot to blame is the medical fraternity, because we've got our head in the sand. We've considered those things a bit woo-hoo for so long. And, as a behemoth model, the medical fraternity acts very, very slowly. But in the meantime, it's pretty clear, and we should be acting a whole lot more quickly and when it comes to educating the public.
Just a quick observation on the plastics things. It's quite funny. In the last, 5 or 10 years, we've banned shopping bags. Oh, we're going to stop shopping bags. And then every single piece of produce you put inside your Hessian bag is covered in plastic. So what have we done? We've got rid of one minuscule part, and then your meat, your fish, vegetables, everything is completely covered in plastic. I think we've got a long way to go before we start to see, I think, the forest for the trees.
Sadly, we do. And it's everywhere, and it's getting worse and worse. And as everyone knows, plastic never disintegrates. It only gets smaller and smaller, and you end up with nanoparticles of plastic. And it's in our bodies, it's in our dairy products, it's in our fish, it's everywhere. It's in our bottles that we drink out of.
Yeah, it is definitely. It's invasive. It is quite across the board. So, so minimize toxins, heavy metals, etc. Even dentistry too. I mean, no one uses mercury anymore, but I know many years ago I had all those fillings taken out. Alcohol, sleep. What do you think about mouth tape and those nose braces you can get to open up your nostrils? Have you had any experience with them helping people?
No. Look, I'm not an expert on that, nor have I done any research. I'm sorry, Adrian. I do know that I'm a snorer.
Yeah.
And I've tried so many things, sticky tape and this and that, and stuff in my mouth and stuff in my nose. I don't know. I'm not an expert on it. All I know is that it's a big problem.
One of the conversations we've had offline too is about how things keep getting promoted in your name with a fake AI version.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Yeah, let this be the platform by which I can get the word
Pronounce.
out. Yeah, do not endorse any products on social media. So anyone who sees any product endorsed by me, please not only disregard it, write in a complaint, because, they have me currently endorsing 34 different products. And that's 34 that I know about. And from sexual enhancement to sexual libido to diabetes to heart disease to blood thinners. I've actually been killed 4 times in the last month. And I think it's just a pure reflection of what media has turned into. Media has turned into getting hits.
Yeah, absolutely. Clickbait.
And it's all about clickbait. And so if you can pick a person who the public are interested in, then you can use that person until you're black and blue in the face.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's remarkable how, especially with the advent of AI, and they take one down and the next day there's another 3 back. So it is definitely something that I think will become more and more prolific as we move on. As we move towards the end of this lovely conversation, I'd love to know more about legacy leadership. You've got your foundation, Charlie T.O. Foundation. What else are you involved in, and how else can we do to support you and the great work that you're doing, Charlie?
Oh, that's lovely, Adrian. Look, there's some famous person said that at the end of their life, the only thing they'd really like to be remembered for is being a good bloke. I mean, that's a really nice thing, to be considered a good bloke. I've never really thought about leaving a legacy. I mean, I know I've got a voice now, and it's good to have a voice, and I'd like to leave some positive legacy on the world. But when you think about things, and it does humble you that, some great people in the world, once they die, they're forgotten. Nelson Mandela is your perfect example of an amazing human being who managed to forgive his persecutors and his enemies after a 27-year incarceration. He forgave them. And that's a lesson that I think everyone should take with them. And Nelson Mandela's name should live on forever. But, sadly, a lot of people forget great figures like that. And so, at the end of the day, I'd like my children to remember me as being a good dad. I'd like the people who I loved to remember me as being a loving sort of person. I'd like to make a difference in terms of the health of the world, and hopefully I've done that. I mean, again, I'm sort of big noting myself a little bit, but, I've introduced keyhole neurosurgery to many different countries, and that has improved the delivery of neurosurgical services to many different populations, not just Australia, but China and hopefully sub-Saharan Africa eventually. I'm doing a lot of work there now.
Lovely.
And, if I can sit back at the end of the day and think, well, that those minimally invasive techniques that I pioneered and I taught, they've made a big difference to people's lives. That'd be nice.
Nice.
I think I'd like to make a difference to the way we treat animals. A lot of my passions have been animal-directed passions. I'm a member of Voiceless, Zambi, and all these great groups of people basically trying to make humans think a little bit more before they eat an animal. Because at the end of the day, animals are just like us. They're sentient beings. They have feelings. They feel love and pain, and the way we treat them is abysmal. It's just criminal the way we treat animals. So if the world could go vegan, that'd be great. I mean, I'm probably one of the world's worst vegans because I'm a vegan most of the time, but I make mistakes occasionally, and I sometimes even lose my direction occasionally. And that's bad because it's like saying, I want to be a little bit kind, not completely kind. I'd love to make a difference there.
Lovely. And what about the charities? Obviously, Charlie Teo Foundation is still ongoing. And correct me if I got the name wrong. The Rebel Ball, that's what it was that we attended. And is that connected to Charlie Teo? I know.
Yeah. So one of my passions is to find a cure for brain cancer. And the reason I didn't bring that up as a legacy is because I truly, truly believe and hope that we can find a cure for brain cancer before I die. I never used to say that. Adrian used to say that, it may take another 50 or 60 or 100 years, but, we are making some big advances in cancer research now.
Yeah.
And once we map the human genome, for example, we now can genetically engineer DNA and, genetic sequences. And I'm hoping that this terrible disease of brain cancer could be cured in my lifetime. So the Charlie Teo Foundation has that as its agenda. It was basically founded in the hope that we could educate the public. By educating the public, they would then commit funds and support research. And we know that funds and research lead to cures. We know it. There's many different templates. Just look at leukemia. When I was a medical student, 80 to 90% mortality rate from leukemia.
Right.
And now through billions of dollars of research and time and some very smart people, it's flipped. It's now 90% curable.
Right.
And so I'm hoping that with education comes funding, and with funding comes cures.
Yeah, lovely.
And that's what I'm hoping the Charlie Teo Foundation will do.
Well, as a thank you for coming on the podcast, I remember talking to you about that book I was talking about the connection between emotions and disease. I'm going to buy a copy. I'm going to send it to you in the mail and make sure that you get it, because I do think there's definitely, it's not going to necessarily be a cure for brain cancer, but if it's preventable in the first place, and we understand, I've done a lot of odd education over my life, and there was a great guy by the name of Dr. John D. Martini. My goodness, I can't believe I forgot his name. And he talks a lot about how the emotions, most diseases, if you break down the word, is dis-ease. Almost all diseases have an emotional component to it. So, and I do get the book to you. Maybe we can rejoin and after we've had a look at those notes and seen if that helps you along your journey.
No, you don't have to convince me on that one anyway. Adrian, I truly understand the importance, the enormous importance of mental health, because I started, when I went through that terrible time 5 years ago, I was getting palpitations and I wasn't sleeping well, and I started getting some arthritis, and I know that it was all stress related.
Yeah.
And now that the stress has dissipated somewhat, I'm starting to feel healthier again. And you don't have to convince me on that one. Dis-ease absolutely is incredibly important to maintain brain health. And, and that's the saddest thing about what we're going through at the moment. We're going through this terrible phase in humanity where everyone's a little bit,
And deceived, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
we're changing so rapidly with social media, the internet, Wi-Fi. Haven't quite got a hold on how to embrace those technologies without it hurting us.
Mm.
And I think there's probably more negative that's come out of social media than positives at the moment.
I think it's changed the way that the vanity and the self-obsession that it's created in human nature is.
Vanity, obsession, keeping up with the Joneses, it's just, and not being able to believe what you see or hear, unfortunately, put us in a disequilibrium situation where we know it's good and we know we have to embrace it, but there's got to be some way we mitigate the negative sides of social media.
I'll add to that too, because it's one of my first coaching strategies I help with guys and their partners when they come into it. I say remove all your social media from your phone. By all means, have it on your laptop or your desktop. But our rarest commodity that we own as a human being is our attention. And when the product is free, you're the product. So social media, Facebook, Instagram, doesn't cost us a cent. Because what they're doing, they're vying for our attention so that we consume, we buy stuff. And then guess what? When you're doing that, you're not running a successful life. You're not running a successful business. You're not being a great parent. You're so caught up in another unreal world that you're not focusing on your real world. So I love the fact that we're on this.
That's so right. And poor old parents. How do parents manage that and navigate their way through allowing their children to be modern children, current children, i.e., they've got to somehow, oh my God.
I'm in the middle of it, mate. I've got an 11-year-old and a 15-year-old. So I'm in the middle of it right now, and it is hectic. It is
hectic.
So, yeah, absolutely.
I feel so sorry. Thank God when I raised my children, it wasn't really around. And if it was just in its early stages. So I easily managed to keep them away from screens and phones until they were teenagers. So that, they had already had that good groundwork done where they used their imagination. They were good communicators. They
getting them outdoors.
The great outdoors. But today, how do you do that? Oh my God, I feel so sorry for parents today and for children.
It is definitely a challenge. But like we said before, life, we just might not be able to see it at the moment, but life does happen for us. And it's like we said before, and with a period of time and some reflection, we'll see the benefit out of it. But there's definitely an argument for making. Another person I've spoken to recently said, make sure if you've got social media, make it work for you, not against you. So it's really great. Charlie, I can't thank you enough for coming on. This has been a fantastic conversation. I'd love to ask any final questions, comments, or parting statements you'd like to make to our listeners, whether it be about mental health or anything in particular.
Yeah, I think, the one parting message I'd like to give is our opening message. It's better to give than to receive.
I love it.
And it's a great message because at the end of the day, my job in life was to give. I mean, I really feel it. The reason I love medicine so much is because I'm helping others. And when that was taken away from me, I could have wallowed in self-pity, which I did for a while. I could have adopted something else. I could have tried to make money. I could have done all these other things, but it was in my genes. I had to do it. And now that I'm helping people with mental health problems, I feel fantastic again. So, it is good to give. It's good to be kind. Think of your fellow man. Be a good bloke. Treat animals well. Go vegan. All those messages.
Awesome. Charlie T, I can't thank you enough, mate. I really appreciate your time today, and we wish you the very best for everything you've got for the future. Thanks, mate.
Okay, thanks, Adrian. Good.